yes, I need a haircut. So do you. Hi everyone, I am Robyn, the copy bitch. This is Stewie, my sidekick sloth, and today we are going to talk about radio ad copy. What makes for a good radio commercial? Or, as we say in the jargon, radio spot. So first, some background. I got my first adult job. Ooh, that sounded a little weird, huh? My first job as an adult working in radio. The year was 1994. I was still in college and I got really, really lucky. This is not the normal trajectory, but I landed at a Boston radio station. And again, blessed, lucky, I realized that, privileged. Okay. So the nice thing about radio is that it taught me how to develop a real conversational style of copywriting, which is the style I use today, and it's the most effective because if you write the way people talk, you can understand that. It's easy to understand. It's what we do every day in our conversations, and when you are writing for the radio, obviously you don't have the benefit of any visuals or text. So developing that at a very young age helped me develop into the copywriter I am today. So thank you to anyone from my past who might be watching this. Thank you. So a 30-second spot is going to be anywhere from 75 to 85 words, give or take. And I'll talk about why the give or take in a second. For a 60-second spot, you're basically doubling that. So 150 words to 170 words, give or take, okay? You might have a spot that creeps into the 180. You might have one that goes to like 145 for whatever reason. So here's the thing, but those are the targets to shoot for as you're drafting your copy. And here's the thing, after I write an ad, roughly in those, with using those word counts, I always time it. I always read it out loud, usually several times. And the reason why you're going to want to do that is because you want to hear the copy. You want to hear it as it's spoken to make sure, does this sound natural? Does it sound conversational? Are there any awkward sentences? That sort of thing. So you're going to want to get into the habit of reading it out loud, using a timer, stopwatch, egg timer, use your phone, and make sure it falls into whatever length you're writing for. I also recommend actually taping yourself. And I know some of you are probably cringing. You don't want to hear your voice doing the spot, but there's a lot of value in doing that, and here's why. When you record something and listen back, you're going to hear things that you won't have heard as you're just reading it on the fly. So do that. Get over the way your voice sounds. You're going to have a professional announcer do your copy, but listen to the actual substance of the message. First of all, is it clear? Have you put in too many, points? Have you given like a directive as to what you want the listener to do next? So that's a good tip, and I'm kind of going out of order here, so let's actually talk about what makes for a good radio spot. You want to know what your goal is with the radio commercial. So when a client of yours actually does a radio buy, and that's what it's called, we're doing a radio buy, we're doing an advertising buy, normally it will be in conjunction with some other buys. Maybe you have some print buys, maybe you have some TV buys. Yes, it's possible you'll have a client who just is doing a radio buy, but again, you want to make sure if you're doing multiple buys that the themes are consistent throughout, because that's a great way to really get your message out there. Because if someone encounters your radio spot and then they see a billboard and maybe they see a print advertisement, or maybe they see a flyer and the direct mail flyer that they get in their mailbox, if it's a consistent message, that's how you get it to sink into people's heads. Because you probably have heard this adage if you've been doing copywriting for any amount of time, that people need to see a message at least like 7 times before it actually sinks into their head. And I think that's an old number. I would say it's even more than that, because there's so much vying for our attention when you think about everything that we encounter online, from texts and Netflix and email and stuff like that. There's so much vying for our attention that we start to tune out everything. There's so much white noise. So you have to beat put that message out there and repeatedly, and it has to be that consistent message, and that's how you get people to then respond and remember your message. So that's critical. So you want to make sure, if you are doing a multiple ad buy, that the theme and the points that you're making are consistent throughout all the different vehicles you're doing. The key with a radio spot is you don't want to put every point in there. Focus on one or two things that you're trying to communicate. A good example, I just wrote a radio spot for a urology practice that is relocating. So it's in the same town, but they're going to a different street, and they've actually have like a new office building that they've completely revamped. It's bigger, they're gonna have more doctors. Just, it's a good move, but they want to let people know in the community that they've moved to this new place, and to try to get new patients and get people excited about it. So that's the focus of the radio spot, is, hey, we've moved to this awesome street. And luckily the street that they moved to is a well-known street. So, you know, I can say that, and it's the type of thing, if people live in that area, they'll be like, oh yeah, I know where that is. And then you talk about all the great things about this great move, that we have more doctors, no stairs, no ramps, comfortable waiting rooms. This is the best place you're going to want to get treated if you need help from this type of, you know, doctor. So that makes it very easy. Like, we just focus on that, and we're doing that as well in a print buy and direct mail and email, and everything is going to be supported, all those key messages. So that's critical. You no longer have to use phone numbers. Back in the day when I got started, we were still talking in phone numbers because, you know, websites weren't like a real big thing at the time. It was 1994. I mean, I don't even know if I had an AOL address at that point. I might have just gotten one. So not everyone was online, and certainly not every business had a website. Now, every business that's credible has a URL, and phone numbers are hard to remember, even if they have, like, you know, a name in them, like 1-800-CALL-ME. Even that's hard to, you know, put on your smartphone and figure out. So now it's all about sending people to a URL. You want to actually mention that URL at least twice in your radio spot, and 3 times if you can swing it. Keep in mind that every word in the URL counts against your word count. So if we're sending people to robynbradley.com, shout out to my author website, that counts as 4 words. So you have robynbradley.com. So keep that in mind. Your URL does count to that word count. It's very easy to, like, just put the URL in and think, oh, it's just 1 word. It's not. It's actually 4. And I usually actually write it out when I do the radio copy, you know, with the space. It'll be Robyn space Bradley space dot space com space, because it'll make it easier for the announcer who's reading it. Don't forget, the script that you write, customers aren't going to see that, but this is where you can put in notes. You can put in like little directions, like pause here or sound lively here, and making sure you have those spaces in the URL will make it much easier for the announcer to actually read. One of the things you have to know going into the drafting of your spot is this: will it be voiced by the client or someone, you know, on the client side, or will it be voiced by someone at the radio station, or are you hiring a professional voiceover person? Okay, so you have 3 scenarios that you can kind of play with. Clients will often want to voice their own spots, and in radio parlance, we call them vanity spots, because, you know, sometimes like the owner of the company wants to come in and they voice their spots and they're on the radio, and that helps with the whole ego thing. The thing you have to be careful of with that is that usually people who own their own business aren't necessarily professional radio announcers with the, you know, great pipes and can do the great read. But the benefit of using the client too is that it sounds much more authentic. And depending on how long your radio flight is and how much money you're pouring into this, if you're like a regular person, you know, doing these readings over and over, you can develop, that can help add cachet to your business. I'm in Boston, and back in the day, there was a furniture company called Jordan's Furniture. They're still around, but when they started, like, they were doing all these radio spots. It was like the owners of the company with their thick accents and doing the spots, and even though they weren't professional radio announcers, people really responded to the spots, and still do. Like, they're still so well known, and they're so big, and they're so beloved. They're, you know, a Boston fixture. So there can be some benefit to having the client voice the spots, but sometimes it's better to use the professional voiceover or someone from the radio station. That's something you'll have to discuss with the client, discuss with the radio station, all that. But if you are using your client, you're going to want to write the copy in first person. So like, hi, I'm Dr. Bradley, and we've got this new, medical practice. We just relocated to this awesome place with no ramps and no stairs and comfortable waiting rooms. See how that was in first person? That makes sense because it's actually the doctor from the practice. If you're going to be using the radio station announcer, you're going to be writing in a version of you in third person. So, hey, check out this, this awesome medical practice that just relocated to their new digs on this awesome street with plenty of parking and comfortable waiting rooms. Hear the difference there? And that'll be the same if you use a professional voiceover person too. So keep that in mind as a tip. The other thing you want to remember is, what do you want the listener to do after they hear the spot? Someone's hearing the spot, like, what's the goal? Do you want them to go to a website or to remember the URL so they can go there? Do you want them to visit your store? Do you want them to visit your store during a certain time period and ask for a special promotion that they heard on the radio? Or is it just to build brand awareness, which is perfectly okay? I mean, a lot of your national chains, you'll hear them advertise on the radio. It's not because they necessarily are expecting the listener to do anything, but it's building that brand awareness because you're hearing them on the radio. You're seeing them, advertise during the baseball game. You're seeing them, in your mailbox on a direct mail piece. You're encountering their print ads. Again, it builds that, that awareness and that brand exposure. So that hopefully when you are on the market for whatever it is that they're selling, you'll remember them, or they'll come to mind, or you'll get curious enough that maybe eventually you will visit the website, or you will buy the product, or you will visit the store. So again, you want to think of what the goals are and that call to action and make sure that's included somewhere in your spot. But then the creativity comes in. So you might decide that, I think I just ate some of your hair. You might decide that you want to create like a little dialogue between two people, and it's like a little script, which can be fun. Again, you want to make sure you time everything out. Usually when you have a conversation going, the word count will be on the lower side because you have to account for pauses and reaction and breaths, that sort of thing. You might have sound effects. You might have a music bed, as we call. That's the music that's underneath the copy as you're reading it. If your client can invest in one, there might be a jingle, that 1-800-58-GIANT. Is that? I don't know. There's just this mattress giant. Anyway, you might have a jingle that's, your company becomes known for. That used to be very popular in the past, maybe a little less so now, but it can still work. So those are some of the creative elements that you have to keep in mind, and that's where you have fun. As long as you're accomplishing your goals of getting the key points across, making sure you have a clear call to action, you're including the business name and the URL, you can have some fun and creativity. Of course, you have to keep within those word counts, which is challenging, but it can be a fun challenge. All right, let's do a quick recap. Okay, word count, that's usually the big thing that people want to know for a 30-second spot. 75 to 85 words, give or take. 60-second spot, 150 to 170, again, give or take. Always time yourself after you've written your spot, listen to it, see what you need to change, look for awkward constructions. Don't be bound by grammar rules, like end those sentences with a preposition. That's how people talk, okay? So you want to be grammatically correct to a point. You don't want it to sound stupid or dumb or, that you don't know what you're talking about. But you want to write the way people talk. And we talk casually. We talk with, in contractions. We use prepositions at the end of sentences. So forget the English teacher who used to smack you on the wrist about those things, and make sure you are very conversational. What else? You want to make sure you understand the themes, the goals, what are the points that you're trying to get across, and make sure it's consistent across any other advertising you're doing. You want to make sure you know who's voicing the spot in advance. What else? I think that might be everything. I'm sure you'll have other questions about writing radio ad copy, but usually the biggest one is how many words and what do I do, and what do I have to include? Again, don't overthink it. What are you trying to get across? Focus on one key point. If the client is voicing it, do it in first person. If the client is not voicing it, you're going to be doing a combination of second and third. Make sure you mention the URL twice, 3 times if you can. Remember that every word of the URL counts against your word count. So robynbradley.com is 4 words. And I think that might be everything we'll want to cover today, right, Stewie? Once again, I am Robyn, the copy bitch. This is Stewie, my sidekick sloth. We hope you found this video helpful. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, just move along, and we will see you next time.